Let me start with a question. How is it possible that a country facing the harshest sanctions ever imposed can still afford to fight a massive war? Sanctions are economic punishments designed to weaken a country's ability to act. We are supposed to cut off the money, that is, to stop the flow of cash behind the war. Banks were disconnected. Assets were frozen. Frozen meaning legally blocked and unusable. Oil exports were capped. A cap is a legal price limit. And yet the war goes on. Missiles are launched. Weapons are produced. Soldiers are paid. So where exactly does the money come from? And the uncomfortable answer is this. It's floating on the ocean. Far away from TV cameras and newspaper headlines, there's an invisible system, intentionally hidden from public view. And this invisible system is made up of, consists of, aging oil tankers that technically shouldn't be operating at all. These ships form what experts now call a shadow fleet, a secret network of vessels used to bypass rules and sanctions. They move oil that officially should not move. They turn fuel into what we call blood money. That's an expression meaning money earned through violence or human suffering. And this is the story of how that system works. This is the story of how Russia finances the war against Ukraine. To understand this, first you need to understand the mindset. This is a habitual way of thinking. The mindset here. In Russia, many people grow up with a deep suspicion of the state. The government is not seen as a protector, but as a predator. A predator is someone that takes advantage of others. When rules feel unfair or unpredictable, meaning you never know how they will be applied, unpredictable, in Russia, people don't argue with them. They don't argue against these rules. They work around them. That's a phrasal verb, meaning to avoid a rule without breaking it directly. Over generations, this creates a culture of informal problem solving, solving issues through personal connections rather than official channels. You don't confront the system. You go around it, meaning you avoid direct conflict. You find a cousin, a friend, a contact. A contact meaning someone with useful influence. And here's the crucial point. When rules are seen as hostile, breaking them doesn't feel immoral. It feels like survival. This habit transfers easily to international sanctions. When the West introduced new restrictions, Russia didn't waste time debating whether they were fair. It immediately started looking for loopholes. Loopholes are small gaps in laws that allow people to escape restrictions. And the biggest loophole was oil. After the invasion of Ukraine, Europe faced a brutal dilemma. A dilemma is a choice between two bad options. A dilemma. Europe depended heavily on Russian energy. Homes needed heating. Factories needed power. But continuing to buy oil meant funding the war itself. Funding meaning financially supporting. Direct military confrontation was impossible, out of the question. meaning not even an option, out of the question, because Russia is a nuclear power. So Europe chose economic pressure applied through financial restrictions instead of weapons, economic pressure. The plan had two parts. First, Europe stopped buying Russian oil. Second, for oil sold elsewhere, a price cap was imposed. A price cap is a legally enforced maximum price, and it worked like this. If Russian oil was sold above a certain price, Western companies were barred from helping. Barred means officially forbidden. No ships, no insurance, no financing. So above this cap, Western companies were barred from being involved. The idea was simple. Let oil flow so global prices don't explode, but force Russia to sell at a discount. A discount is just a reduced price. On paper, it looked very clever. In reality, Russia walked away from the system entirely. When Europe shut the door, Russia didn't stop exporting oil. It built another door. Almost overnight, a massive operation came together. First came insurance. Insurance is financial protection in case of accidents. Russia's state reinsurer stepped in. To step in is to replace someone who has withdrawn in this context, guaranteeing coverage when Western insurers pulled out. So Russia's state reinsurer stepped in. Second came the ships. Old tankers, some 15 or 20 years old. They were bought very quickly. These vessels were cheap, easy to re-register, and close to retirement anyway. Losing them wouldn't be catastrophic to anyone. Third came rebranding. Rebranding means changing identity to avoid recognition. Ships were renamed. Flags were changed. Ownership was moved, shifted through offshore companies. Offshore just means legally registered in foreign jurisdictions for secrecy. Dubai, Hong Kong, and Ireland registries became key hubs, key centers for this. And all of this happened in weeks, not years. It happened in weeks, not years. That speed was made possible by cash. Oil money that was earned before sanctions were fully applied. Now comes the most ingenious part. Oil leaves Russia clearly labeled as Russian. By the time it reaches its final destination, that identity is gone. First, ships meet at sea for ship-to-ship transfers. This is a technical term meaning oil is pumped from one vessel to another offshore. This often happens at night, far from ports, far from land. Then the oil is blended, mixed with oil from other countries, blended. And once it's mixed, it becomes harder to identify its origin, its source. Next comes paperwork. Documents focus on the last location, not the original source. So oil becomes loaded near Malta instead of loaded in Russia. This is called laundering. In this case, paper laundering. Laundering means making something illegal appear legal. Ships may also go dark. That means they turn off tracking systems, or they broadcast false locations. Each step adds distance, legal, geographic, and bureaucratic. Each step adds distance between the oil and its true origin. And by the time it reaches Asia, it's Russian oil in reality, but not on paper. Money, like oil, also takes a detour. Buyers can't pay Russian banks directly in dollars, so they route payments through third countries. To route means to send indirectly. As an example, money passes through banks in Dubai or Hong Kong. It's converted into local currencies and then quietly flows back into Russia through partner institutions. Once it's back into Russia, it's converted into rubles and taxed. On the surface, everything looks legal. Underneath, it's a carefully engineered illusion. For a while, enforcement looked like, a game of whack-a-mole. That's an idiom meaning problems pop up faster than they can be stopped. Shut down one ship, 10 more appear. But eventually governments adapted. Instead of sanctioning industries, they started sanctioning individual ships, targeting specific vessels by name. Port bans followed the ships, not just their paperwork. Insurance became the new choke point, a choke point being a narrow area where control is easier, like a bottleneck. Without valid insurance, ports refuse entry. Reinsurance, and reinsurance is insurance for insurers. Reinsurance was also targeted. Without it, one accident could bankrupt the ship owner. The goal isn't to eliminate the shadow fleet overnight. It's to slow it down, reduce the speed and efficiency, raise the risks and increase costs until the business model collapses. This hidden system explains why the war continues despite sanctions. It shows how corruption, fear, and profit intertwine. Intertwine means to become deeply connected. And it reminds us of an uncomfortable truth. Modern wars are not just fought with weapons, but with logistics, the systems that move money, fuel, and supplies. When truth becomes dangerous, it's treated like contraband. Contraband is illegal goods. And that's why this story matters. I'm going to go through the vocabulary, phrasal verbs, idioms, and sayings from this episode. Sanctions are economic punishments imposed by countries. Sanctions were designed to reduce Russia's war funding. When we talk about a shadow fleet, this is a secret group of ships used to bypass regulations. For example, the shadow fleet transports oil outside official systems. A price cap is a legal maximum price. For instance, oil sold above the price cap loses access to Western services. Reinsurance. This is just insurance for insurance companies. As an example, without reinsurance, shipping becomes extremely risky. Blending, in this context, means mixing substances, oil, to hide origin. Blending oil makes tracing it more difficult. When we talk about paper laundering, this is falsifying documents to hide illegal origins in this case. Paper laundering hides where oil truly comes from. A few of the phrasal verbs we used: to work around. This is to avoid a rule creatively. They worked around sanctions using offshore companies. To step in is to take over when someone withdraws. The state stepped in when insurers pulled out. To cut off. This is to stop completely. As an example, we could say Europe cut off direct oil purchases. You'll hear people talking about going dark. This is to disable tracking systems. Some ships go dark during transfers. When we say slow down, we mean reduce speed or efficiency. Enforcement aims to slow down illegal trade. Just a few idioms and sayings. Blood money, money earned through violence. Oil profits became blood money. Out of the question. Impossible to consider. Direct war was always out of the question. I think I talked about whack-a-mole. This is endless, recurring problems. You'll hear people say things like, enforcement felt like a game of whack-a-mole. A choke point is a narrow control point. Insurance became the key choke point. And that is everything for this episode. Thank you for listening. This is Listen. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, bye-bye for now.